U.S. ship. Oh, by the way, this story was given to me by an 8th grade girl, and that's going to matter. Please divert your course 15 degrees to the south to avoid collision. Okay, that's a U.S. ship. Canadian reply. No, we recommend you divert your course 15 degrees. U.S. ship. No, this is the captain of a U.S. Navy ship. Divert your course. Canadian reply. No, please, we say again, divert your course. Very polite. Canadian. Anyone from Canada here? Polite, right?
Yes, sir.
It's not like very kind. A U.S. ship. No, this is the aircraft carrier USS Coral Sea. We're a large warship of the U.S. Navy. Divert your course now. Canadian reply. This is a lighthouse. It takes a second. This is a lighthouse. Okay, so how many people had heard that before? Some have, right? If you have, yeah. And this is a great story because you can use it really for anything. And I'm sure that 8th grade girl, when I speak in schools, often the kids know I like to joke around a lot, so I get jokes from them. She, of course, I'm sure 8th grade girl felt sort of embattled, and it worked for her, it felt great for her, which makes absolute sense. And I'm using it, though. I'm using it to talk about this distinction. And the revolution that we feel we're involved in, small grassroots revolution, but growing over the decades, is a revolution to get all of us in all our professions, including parenting. I'm the parent of 2 daughters, 2 grown daughters. Get all our professions to move as much as possible toward actual hard science, and to get away from constant opinion that can go in 1,000 directions and can create systemic failure. And systemic failure is really what we don't want. Systemic failure, leads to things like lots of kids hurting, killing themselves, killing each other, kids dropping out of school, right? I mean, systemic failure exists, and we don't want it. And so what we've been involved in is a kind of groundswell effort to move as much as we can toward brain science, since that's what everyone shares. No matter their culture, we share genes and brain science. Okay? So the distinction I would make is that all of that is a lighthouse. And it's sitting there, and it's not moving. And it's taken about 1 million years, depending on when you start human development, it's taken about 1 million years to develop, to be built, and to sit there. The moving ship and the moving ships, that's culture. Culture's constantly shifting. Our culture in terms of gender, in terms of sex and gender, obviously has shifted a lot, right, in the last 50 years. So I'm born in 1958, I'm 59 years old. In that 59 years, roles of women, girls, etc., all of this stuff has changed. So that's a moving ship. That's a moving ship. And I'm guessing there's no one who wouldn't say it's good, we want equality, etc. So that's the moving ship. The brain science is, in a sense, over here. The brain science is shedding light on systems constantly, shedding light on systems. And every once in a while we create systems that don't really work well. And I'm going to argue that the lighthouse, we got to see the lighthouse, we got to see the light coming off here. And so I'll be showing you PET scans, SPECT scans, etc. of the brain. You'll actually be seeing this, and I'll lay it all out for you. Make sense for a start? Okay, so the lighthouse and the moving ship. All right, I'm gonna read you another little story that's gonna set us up, and these are some of the books that are over there. A lot of what I'll say. Just know that basically everything I'm gonna say is in these resources. Okay. So these are various scans that we'll be looking at it under different colors and in different ways. And you'll find one of the keys to this is that this work is transcultural. So no matter what cultural group or socioeconomic group you're dealing with, the brain scans are the brain scans. They come in on the chromosomes, so they're universal. So nature, nurture, and culture are sort of the 3 key words in our work. Nature, nurture, and culture. And when I started out, and to a great extent right now, schools of education are heavy on the culture part, which is great. It's all really good. Heavy on the culture part, somewhat on the nurture part, not much on the nature part. And in fact, I'll poll you. Many of you have gone through some undergraduate or graduate education. In that education, would you agree or disagree with me that most of the education we're getting academically to prepare us to work with kids is more on the culture and nurture part? Anyone disagree on that? I mean, please feel free to disagree. Yeah, I think we would all agree on that. Everywhere we go, we find more on the culture, most on the culture part, a lot of good on the nurture part, but very little on the nature part. And we want to shift that with you.
We want it to be nature, nurture, and culture when we do systems development. So gender, sex and gender, understanding the minds of boys and girls, that's coming in just like personality. That comes in on the genome. So just remember, I'm going to prove that to you by the end of these 2 hours, that comes in on the genome. So that's that's really, really important to know, and that's why the systems have to take into account not just the human brain, but the male and female brain when we create systems. If we don't, then we will have trouble. So it gets expressed, so genes get expressed. And my theory, the Gurian theory, is nature-based theory, and of course it has gone beyond me with Katie and all of you. This nature-based theory is nurture the nature. So start with nature, figure out what nature is, nurture that, and set up cultures that are going to help us nurture the nature, right? Which is a different perspective than this is what the culture is saying to do ideologically. We haven't really studied nature. Does that make sense? Right? So this is where we believe, hopefully not hyperbolic, that we're a little revolution. We're trying to create a revolution where everyone talks about nature first, then moves out to nurture and culture. Okay, so now I'm going to read you another funny story. Before you get into those, I won't show you those yet because there's a lot. So I put this in the minds of boys, and this is sort of a signature story that we use to help set up the lighthouse, and especially the lighthouse male brain and female brain. All right, so enjoy this story, and then we'll talk about it. So this guy's looking back, and it's in a book called Up to No Good: The Rascally Things Boys Do, as told by perfectly decent grown men. Okay? So Kitty Harmon, who is the editor of this book, asked a bunch of guys to go back into their boyhoods and talk about the rascally things they did. When we were 13 or so, this guy says, my friends and I had a game. We would go down to the basement where we could make it completely dark. Each of us would find a hiding place. Someone would start the game by turning out the lights, and then we would try to hit each other with darts. Okay? So these are metal-pointed darts. So, and by the way, I'm going to actually ask you guys to participate a bit. So first I'm going to ask the guys, what things like this did you do when you were a kid? Then I'm going to ask women, what things like this did the boys, friends you had, brothers, fathers, uncles, etc., do that are like this? Okay? So these guys go into a dark basement, throw metal-pointed darts at each other. These are guys who love each other. Remember, these are best friends. So you'd think you heard someone make a noise. You'd come out of your hiding place, throwing darts, but you're cringing because you're fair game too. There'd be silence. Then you'd hear someone yell, "Ow!" So one time we turned on the light, and a guy had a dart dangling from his cheek, right below his eye. Did they stop the game? No. After that, he says, we just wore goggles. Right? They kept going. Okay. So, what would drive guys to do that? And this is within the next 10 to 15 minutes. You're going to know if you don't already know. I believe you have instincts for this already. I'll just give you the science over the period of these 2 hours. And then for the folks at home, over the period of the 4 hours, we're going to do it. Something's driving these guys to do this. And I think we can prove it anecdotally in this room. So I'm going to ask the guys, what things like this did you do? They probably caused some pain, and that was the point, or you didn't really care about that. You moved objects through space. So you threw something. It's going to involve a ball or a dart or something that moved around. And in a way, it was the best way you had at that moment to show your love, your camaraderie, your relationship. So, give me a couple of things, guys, and then we're going to go to the women. Guys, who remembers anything? I'll start with BB guns. My brother and I hit each other with BB guns. Go ahead.
We take pocket knives and throw at each other's feet, try to stick them in the dirt. Sometimes you mess it in the foot.
Right. So that's a good one. So they took pocket knives and they would throw it at each other's feet because they're trying to hit the dirt next to the feet, but sometimes they hit the foot. You had one.
Sunday morning, and before Sunday school would start, we'd lean out the window and spit on the cars as they were dropping out.
Oh.
It was like a target practice sort of thing.
Okay, so they did target practice by Sunday morning before Sunday school. I love that detail. Before Sunday school, they would lean over and the cars would be coming underneath, and they would spit on the cars as target practice. Spit as object moving through space. Yep, very important. Go ahead.
We had a 2.5-story roof. We would climb to the top of it and jump off, do stunts in the pool. And then we found that we had a video camera, so we would videotape ourselves doing
That's great. So they would jump off, and then they would videotape themselves. That's really good. That fits with the new generation. You can put it on Instagram. If your kids are doing
We
it.
would have done that, yes.
You would have done that, yeah. Okay, some women. Some women, what do you remember? Your sons, your brothers, go ahead.
So my son had a party in the backyard, surprisingly. In the pool, one of his friends stood on the wall and dove into the pool.
Okay, so her son had a party, they have a pool. One of the friends, the guys, stood on the wall and dove into the pool. Kind of high risk, not brilliant.
And today, now he's 37, and this happened when they were 17. I ran into him. He doesn't remember.
Yeah, and she says this was when he was 17. It's 20 years later now. He's 37. She was telling him about it, and he doesn't remember doing it. Right. So that's using his body as an object moving through space. Really, really important. Object moving through space. There was another woman. I had your hand up, I think. Yeah, go ahead.
I have two sons, and they got too big for me to wrestle with them. We go in the pool, and I can sit in the deep end on a noodle and throw the ball for them in the shallow end. We play 3 flags out, which means I throw the ball, they take turns trying. They don't even take turns; they both try to grab it, which means we grab, and somebody else runs on you, and somebody else pushes you under, and there's a lot of physical touch.
Right.
So it was socially appropriate hugging for my sons.
Beautiful. Okay, that's beautiful. She said that in the pool, they were younger. In the pool, she would throw something at them. They would be trying to grab it, and they were on top of each other trying to grab it. And it was, and she makes a wonderful point. It was a socially acceptable way. It was a way in which they naturally did touch attachment, really, is what we would say. But they did it in that wonderfully aggressive way that often guys have, where they jump on each other, wrestling on each other. And it's actually a very, we're going to talk about it in this thing today. It's a really neat part of touch attachment. It's a really neat part of social emotional development. But it's underrated because we tend to think of social emotional and attachment and so on as being linked to what? What do we tend to see good attachment as linked to? Just test, talking, right? Words, verbals. And we call that verbal emotive attachment. Words connected to feelings to have attachment, which is obviously incredibly great. This kind of attachment is what we call more spatial attachment, spatial mechanical attachment, and touch attachment or physical attachment. And it's just as great, but it doesn't involve as many words. So these are really great. I'll take one more. These are just wonderful. Anyone got another one?